Hi guys, it's Ember from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements of the week ending September 25th, 2017. This is episode number 114 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is from ArenaNet regarding Guild Wars 2. The highly anticipated Path of Fire expansion is officially live, and it can be purchased right now for $29.99 for the base version and $79.99 for the most expensive ultimate version. The expansion features 9 new elite specializations for the game's classes, brand new zones, bosses, and much more. Anyone who buys the Path of Fire expansion also gets a free max level boost to 80, as well as some gear to jumpstart their journey into the game's new content. The concept of skipping early content and starting at the current content is something that's caught on with a lot of games. So if you're new to Guild Wars 2, you can get started right away if you buy Path of Fire. And speaking of new launches, Mu Legend from Webzen is finally launching into open beta on November 7th, and that was just confirmed this last week. Furthermore, they actually already did a pre-open beta stress test on September 23rd, which was just yesterday. So they're clearly getting serious about a release in English soon. The reason why the game hasn't begun open beta testing in English just yet, while it's been open beta since March in Korea, is because Webzen wanted to incorporate player feedback into the global version of the game. So if all goes well, we should have a much more polished launch than the Korean version, but only time will tell. And I'm actually still optimistic about Mu Legend, because while it doesn't have as much hype as Lost Ark or Lineage Eternal, it's going to be releasing quite a bit before those games. And again, open beta is set to launch on November 7th. And also speaking of release dates, Monster Hunter World will be launching on consoles worldwide on January 26, 2018. And there's definitely a lot of hype behind this one, but despite the launch being confirmed for console, there's no word on a PC release date just yet. Personally, I'm looking forward to that PC release. I will know sometime in the future for the console release date though. There's a ton of hype behind this one, and I'm curious to see how Dauntless will do now that we know that Monster Hunter World is coming to PC. I think Dauntless will still have a chance though, because it'll be free to play, whereas Monster Hunter World will most likely retail at full price at about $60. But yeah, a lot of hype for this one. And I'm moving right along. Tera released their development roadmap this last week for the remainder of 2017, which shows players what kind of updates they can expect for the rest of the year. And the biggest update is set to launch later this year, is actually in November, and it's for the highly anticipated Alien Gunner class, which is set to launch again in November. In October though, they'll be launching the Arsenal update, which will feature 2 new dungeons, as well as revamp the chanting and gear progression systems. And despite Tera's age now, it's still going fairly strongly, and the game's player base has a lot to look forward to in the next few months. And speaking of in-mass and action MMORPGs, Closers just wrapped up its second round of closed alpha testing this last week and is inching towards full release. Unfortunately, we still don't have an official release date on when that full release is going to be, but based on their initial announcement, they expect to be launching the game by the end of the year, and there's not too much time left for that. I'm still curious if people are interested in the official server though, as there's been an English language private server for Closers for some time already. And in case you didn't know, Closers, it's one of those DFO style instance dungeon persistent town games with linear stage based progression, so think stuff like DFO, Critica, Vindictus, Soulworker, Dragon Nest, and all those style games. And much like those games, the graphics are actually quite stylish and the gameplay is fluid, but it has to do something different, otherwise it'll be just like any other game, but we'll have to wait and see. Up next, EverQuest just announced its 24th expansion this last week, titled Ring of Scale, and yes, you heard that correctly, EverQuest is now on its 24th expansion. It's one of the longest continuously running MMORPGs out there since it launched back in 1999. Not too much known about the expansion just yet, but we do know it'll feature new alternative advancements, monsters, zones, spells, gear, and more. The expansion is scheduled to launch right now sometime in December 2017, and EverQuest is actually the second MMORPG I've ever played personally, and it still holds a special place in my heart, and I'm glad to see it still going strongly, and hope it goes for another 24 expansions. And speaking of oldies, Uncharted Waters Online is shutting down on OG Planet, but fear not, the game is moving over to Papaya Play. It's actually the second OG Planet game to move over to Papaya Play in recent months. Prior to this, Latte also shut down and relaunched over there. Now, OG Planet is officially ending service for Uncharted Waters Online on September 29th. Players will be able to play the game on Papaya Play starting on October 18th. And oddly enough, Papaya Play didn't say if character data will be transferred over, but they did say players should write down their OG Planet account info, so I suspect that data will be saved, but we'll have to wait and see. Uncharted Waters is a bit of an oddball actually. It's one of the only seafaring MMORPGs out there, and it's also one of the only Japanese developed MMORPGs. It originally launched back in 2005, but still has a pretty core player base. And given how things are going, I'm pretty sure OG Planet is shutting down. They have like no other games now. After Uncharted Waters, they only have one browser game, so I think they're shutting down. Rest in pepperoni, OG Planet. Up next on a bit of old MMORPG news, but not that old. Atlantica Online released a new Fist mercenary this last week called Tanya. It's the third Fist anniversary to be introduced to the game, and this in and of itself isn't really a big update, as the game already has hundreds of mercenaries for players to recruit, but the game is also running a neat little promotion to encourage veterans to come back and try the game. Anyone who returns to Atlantica now gets a brand new set of powerful gear. I did a first look for this one recently, and despite it being a bit old now, it still has a fairly decent sized player base, and it's one of the only turn-based MMORPGs on PC, so at least it does differentiate itself a little bit. Next up, in modern MMO news this time, the previously announced Joseph update for Albion Online is set to launch next week on December 27th to be precise, which is actually this Wednesday. The update adds a new arena mode to the game where players can participate in match PvP against opponents across various game modes and get rewarded for actually doing so. The coming Joseph update also adds new treasure sites, 2 near tier 6 expeditions, new abilities, UI improvements, and the much awaited smart casting mechanic, along with a bunch of other goodies. If you've never played Albion Online yet, it's definitely one of the more unique MMORPGs to launch this year, plus it's actually quite popular and I think worth trying. Up next, Guardians of Ember officially left early access this week, and if you haven't heard of Guardians of Ember, you're probably not alone. It's a Diablo-like ARPG developed and published by Runewaker Entertainment, the company best known for Runes of Magic and Dragon's Prophet. Oddly enough though, despite Runewaker's other 2 games being free to play, Guardians of Ember went with the buy to play model, and it doesn't seem to be working too well for them. The game's average concurrent player base is quite tiny at about 35 at any given time, but the number has since jumped to about 130 since leaving early access. Still, that's not nearly enough to support a game. I suspect that this one will go free to play soon. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, Fortnite's Battle Royale game mode is going free to play for everyone on September 26th. No early access founders packs required. While Fortnite was always going to be free to play, the early access version did require a purchase. To play the base Fortnite game, you'll still need to either wait till full release or buy a founders pack, but the Battle Royale game mode specifically is open to everyone for free starting tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the 26th again. It's a 100-player Battle Royale mode where the last man standing wins. It's a free-to-play alternative to the super popular PUBG. While it's a different experience, it's still quite fun, though I do need to mention again, it did copy a lot of elements from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, but it's good for players because, again, it's that free alternative. Up next, a small update for the superhero-themed action MMORPG DC Universe Online. Episode 29, Riddled with Crime, just launched this last week, and it brings players back to Gotham City where they'll do battle against iconic villains like the Riddler and Joker. The update adds a new 4-player operation, as well as a new 8-player raid, and new open-world missions to the game. DC Universe still gets about 500 or so players online at any given time on Steam alone, and the game is actually available on consoles as well, and I actually remember reading that it's doing a lot better on consoles than PC as well, but the game is still fairly vibrant. Plus, it's the only other superhero MMORPG out there besides Champions Online, if I remember correctly. And speaking of small updates, Black Desert Online will be remastering the entire MMORPG soundtrack with the help of the game's original composer, along with the German National Orchestra of Hall, as well as other big orchestras. Currently, 40 of the game's 240 themes have been remastered, with many more on the way. BDO has been a huge success since its launch in the West, and it's great to see some of that success being plowed back into polishing the game with remastered graphics, audio, and other goodies. And as is, Black Desert Online is still the most popular traditional MMORPG on Steam, averaging about 12,400 users on there over the last 30 days on Steam alone, so they're doing phenomenally well. And if you haven't tried this one yet, it's 100% worth trying. There's a free trial on their website, and it's ultimately worth the money, IMO. Moving right along, onto the mobile MMORPG front, Archeage Begins is set to release on October 25th and is being published by Gameville. Actually, to be more precise, Gameville is calling Archeage Begins an MMORPG, which would make it a massive online role-playing game, so it won't have as much multiplayer components, apparently, as a traditional MMORPG. The game is set to be in the same universe as the PC MMORPG, and with it will have many of the same elements, including trading, fishing, and housing. It'll also have competitive stuff like guild battles and PvP combat. Time will tell whether the mobile adaptation will prove successful though, but regardless, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of these big MMORPG franchises launching mobile versions. We've already seen it for Aeon, Lineage, and countless other games, and I think we'll be seeing it more and more as well. And speaking of big MMORPG franchises going mobile, Tera M from Netmarble just released their brand new gameplay trailer this week. We mentioned this one last week, and the game is expected to launch in South Korea later this year, November to be precise, and it'll be launching in the Western markets sometime in 2018. While we can see some actual in-game graphics, we still aren't being shown too much combat just yet. Here's hoping the mobile version lives up to the Tera name and has that fun PC combat, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Next and last bit of news this week comes from Nexon regarding Lawbreakers. The game released patch 1.4 this last week, which added a brand new map called Namsan, a new game mode called Skirmish, as well as made some balance tweaks to all of the game's classes. The update launched on both PC and PS4 this last week. And while Nexon also released a Q4 2017 roadmap for the game, its player base has been dwindling and only averaged about 170. That's actually less than what Ghost in the Shell First Assault has, and that one's already scheduled to shut down. I suspect that Nexon is going to make Lawbreakers free to play in the near future, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later guys.